Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're connecting from. This is Marco Marinucci again from Mind the Bridge, and today we have a new Mind the Chat. We're going to talk about economic development and the role of innovations within the framework of Startup Ecosystem Stars. We have a fantastic panel here, so let me introduce all our panelists without any specific order here as I have in the list. Welcome to Matthew Archuleta, a senior associate from Connecticut Innovation. Good morning, Matthew. We have Ram Akella, managing director of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Morning, Ram. We have Anne-Sophie Mail, director of international partnerships from New York City Economic Development Corporation. And last but not least, from Tokyo at midnight, we have Daiki Nakajima, Director of Business Development at JTRO USA. Good morning, good evening, good night, everybody. So this is a panel that falls within the framework of what we call Startup Ecosystem Stars. Startup Ecosystem Stars is an initiative that Mind the Bridge started together with the ICC, the support and the collaboration with the OECD and Microsoft. And basically uh, is an extension of what we've been doing with corporates for the last 10 years, the Corporate Startup Stars program. Basically, what we try to do is to give and share the best practices of how regions, economical development agencies, cities are supporting innovations in all different areas, and how those policies are actually turning into benefits. So maybe we can share real quick the website, the landing page. So it gives a little bit of a framework here of Startup Ecosystem Stars. Basically, the way that it works is that the jury, made of a number of experts in the field, are evaluating hundreds of experiments from agencies, or, as I said, cities or non-government organizations. The five areas that we are highlighting are what we call here, we can go one by one, but startup programs. So basically, activities in support of inbound and outbound support for startups for your region. Then we have industry support, SME support, so all policies in support of open innovation from your local traditional companies. We have an area that is what we call the investment boost. So basically, to highlight policies that are attracting and creating more opportunity of investments in local activity, local entities. And then we have the area of research and support of talent as well. So policies for as they support the creation and commercialization of intellectual properties. And last but not least, from this year, we also added an important piece that is more along the process. And so the ability, the simplicity, the reduction of red tape. So the visionary procurement, public procurement processes. So areas of how all these activities and programs are easy then to tap into. So long introduction just to give a little bit of a background of what the next hour conversation will be. And so what I would say, let's start with the quick introductions, a little bit of a background of the agency that you represent. All of you, by design, actually here are based on the East Coast. 3 out of 4 are like state in agencies and economical development agencies. The one specifically actually is international, but still based out of New York on the East Coast. So it will be an interesting set of conversations of how today some of the major programs on the East Coast to attract and promote innovation, local innovation, and attraction from external innovation. So without further ado, let's do a quick introduction. So Machi, if you want to start real quick, just also with a description of the agency that you represent, which of those pieces that we just mentioned is focused on.
Sure. Marco, thanks for having me, and certainly thanks for hosting this. So first, my name is Matthew Archuleta. I'm a tech investor for Connecticut Innovations. Connecticut Innovations is the state of Connecticut's strategic venture capital arm. So roughly 30 years ago, and after several changes in structure and evolutions, we come to where we are today as a quasi-public agency who is investing in early stage startups in both the bioscience and the technology side that have a Connecticut presence here in Connecticut. So either supporting local homegrown startups, attracting out of state startups to expand into the state of Connecticut, or even trying to attract international companies that are establishing a US headquarters and bringing them to Connecticut and supporting them here with venture dollars and our ecosystem. We have a portfolio of roughly 220 companies. We have over $400 million in assets under management. We do about 70 deals a year and deploy between 45 and 55 million a year. So we are extremely active investors working to increase the number of startups and really create an ecosystem. And we're headquartered in New Haven, Connecticut.
Perfect. So the focus is here super clear. We were just browsing your website, also with some exits. So a typical investor, but obviously with the focus on the regional development. Thank you. We'll dive a little deeper, obviously, with some of your activities. Ram, you're next. Give us an introduction of what you guys do at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority.
Marco, thank you for hosting this event and inviting us. Ram Akella, Executive Vice President of Innovation Impact for the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Unlike other EDCs or economic development entities around the world, we do all of that. Plus, we have a very large operation within the Economic Transformation Division, which is what I'm part of. The Economic Transformation Division is really as close to a private financial services company as we can get. Under my direction are a lot of venture activities in terms of venture fund of funds, venture debt programs, a host of innovation programs, and investments in strategic innovation centers, plus all of our clean energy products and the New Jersey Green Bank, which is being stood up later this month. Over the last couple of years, we've spent a good amount of time in really curating a portfolio of products and programs that support companies across the entire continuum of development, from ideation, where we have what we call the New Jersey Innovation Fellowship Program, where we provide grants for a team of 3 or more wannabe entrepreneurs as a income substitution, through a angel founders and funders program, through a tax incentive program to promote investment in the state, along with a product that we launched, or a program that we launched last year called the New Jersey Evergreen Fund, which is a co-investment vehicle for us to invest in companies in Jersey alongside other VCs that we attract to the state. It has these strategic innovation centers are key and focus of our ecosystem development. These are place-based accelerators, studios, venture funds, venture studios, or research and development facilities focused around life sciences, clean energy, aviation, and select sectors. Those are scattered around the state, and that is really to promote, attract companies globally, and have them and support them with all the programs and products, including access to capital, corporates, universities, government agencies, for capital introductions, for alliances, joint ventures, customers, etc. So a lot more. I certainly don't want to screw up all the time.
It is definitely a plethora of activities here that we might want to dig a little deeper. It's also nice to see there's a little local competitions here, right? Because we're looking at Connecticut, New Jersey, and now New York City. And Sophie, tell us a little bit of New York City Economic Development Corporation.
Great, thanks so much, and thank you also for including us here in this webinar. I'm really excited also to listen to what my colleagues in Connecticut and New Jersey are doing. New York, NYCDC is the economic development arm of the city of New York. We are a quasi-governmental agency, so our board is appointed by the mayor of New York. Technically, we're a nonprofit, and our goal is to strengthen New York as a great place for companies from all over the world in all sectors to do business at. What sets us apart from some of the other economic development agencies are our assets, our physical assets. We own 66 million square feet of real estate all across New York City. So that includes all 5 boroughs. 66 million square feet. I tried to break it down to an international audience. Translates to 140 soccer fields. And we use that real estate in all different kinds of ways. So among others, we try to build sustainable infrastructure across New York City. For example, we were involved in the Highline Project, also in Times Square, and also at Cornell Tech. Happy to go into that later today. We also we use some of the real estate to grow our innovation sectors. Since we're a nonprofit, we have a $9 billion operating budget over the next 9 years that we need to reinvest into New York. And some of that we reinvest again to grow those innovation sectors. And those include tech, life sciences, and the green economy. For international companies, we try to connect them. We have a business development team, and we try to connect companies from abroad and also from across the US with our different real estate assets and to give them access to different kinds of tax credits. There's over 70 different tax credits available for international, for US companies in tech, life sciences, and the green economy, different founding opportunities. I'd be happy to provide more details as we go along. The most important thing to note is that we have a business development concierge service that connects with individual companies and helps them access those specific tax credits and helps them get access to the real estate all across New York City. Our focus also at EDC is to create an inclusive and diverse New York because we call our diversity our asset, which is why we try to support companies from all over the world and also and we also try to include founders and startup companies from underrepresented backgrounds.
Excellent. There's so much going on. I'm so excited about the discussion. Daiki, you normally are based in New York, although now temporarily in Japan, and you also represent the international component of the discussion, but still with a focus on the East Coast. So give us a little bit of introduction on JETRO as an institution, in particular with the focus of what you guys are doing on the East Coast.
Sure. Thank you very much. I would have been joyful to be in New York right now, given the time difference. But Japan is Japan, and exciting times. But thank you very much. I'm Daiki Nakajima, Director of Business Development at JETRO New York. And at JETRO, we are the international agency arm of the Japanese government. We promote bilateral investments between Japan and the world, in this case, Japan and the US. But at the same time, we have a global network of over 70 offices in 56 or 55 countries. So we are very much global. At JETRO, one of the core activities that we do in New York is essentially investment trade between any US companies that go to Japan or any Japanese companies or startups that come to the US. And my role here is to essentially build that ecosystem in the East Coast. And we have 6 other offices in the US. But for me, essentially, where my peers today is essentially my focal sort of states as well in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, and otherwise all the other the rest of 12 other states that I oversee. But certainly, as we are close tri-state area, I think it's essential for me to always continue to be active in this community. And then at JETRO, the other things that we do is really, we used to be focusing just on these investments going in and out. But in recent times, our programs are developed and we've started to collaborate more on, between company to companies. So, any type of innovation, open innovation, these are some of the things that the JETRO, Japan, and the government are certainly active. And what we're doing is to ensure that these technologies or ideas are shared between the two countries. So, for me in the East Coast, essentially that's what I do, and I'm happy to sort of share that information today.
Very good. And then we'll have a little more time to talk about details of some of the programs. So JETRO was among the awardees of last year Startup Ecosystem Stars in Paris. So congratulations for that. You guys have been working heavily in those topics for a very long time. So I think you're a reference in particular for other international trade organizations around the world that are testing now the waters of what are the processes and programs that can be effective. So more to come. All right, I would say it's a lot to discuss here. I would probably start with the bucket or the block of support of investments, as I think this is common across the board of all agencies here. So maybe let's start from the easiest setup here with Matthew, because that's really the focus of what you guys do day in, day out. Let's talk a little bit about the flow of the deal flow overall. So how easy or complex, what is the value proposition that you guys use to to find the right members of and the right investments for your agency. So let's talk a little bit about the process.
Sure, absolutely. So our North Star is ultimately, progress and economic development for the state. And we certainly want to do that with the right investments and making sure that whatever capital we deploy is going to be a multiplier. So, for us, our process is we really need some kind of presence in the state of Connecticut. We'd love to have a headquarters here for the company. We'd love to have senior executives, so a C-suite executive here in the state at a minimum, and that can be living or working in the state. So we have right now situations where they live in western southern Connecticut and commute into the city for their headquarters and their work. We also have on rare occasions the reverse commuters who live in Manhattan and then come over to western Connecticut. So we also have cases where we have a large contingent of high skilled engineers, let's say, or software developers, or tech workers or bioscience workers here in the state with the C-suite executive, and maybe it's a California company. We're here to support expansion. So when we are introduced to a company, we want to see that they're either here for the right reasons or they have a growth plan in Connecticut, because there's just so much to offer with our talent pool here in the state, with our major universities in the state, with our major healthcare systems in the state, our aerospace and defense companies in the state. So making sure that whatever the company is has a reason to move here if they're out of state, for example, because we're never going to write a check just to get somebody here that we like. It needs to be an organic opportunity that makes sense, because we want the growth to be, and the facilitation of meetings with these corporations and entities in the state to be something that's long term and long lasting and best for all parties. Because once we invest, we have a fiduciary duty for the betterment of the company itself.
And as
So
you said, obviously the drive of that is really clear, right? Is to develop the economy locally. What is the formal action that you need in order to consider an investment? Is the establishment of an office enough? What is the formal document you need to see to be at the minimum level threshold of considering an investment in what is
so,
a
so
company?
luckily, we have some flexibility, but we're going to want to see, yes, either a lease on an office space,
Mhm.
proof that somebody actually lives in the state, or proof that they have employees working in the state. And that's something we have. And there are rare occasions where we can say, okay, sign a lease here, or move to the state here, or open this office in, let's say 30 days after investment closes.
Mhm.
But for the most part, just kind of basic proof that there's already something here in Connecticut. And then we negotiate and come up with a plan for growth within the first, let's say year of the company's existence in our portfolio and moving forward.
And other than that, in your investment terms, your term sheet, is that typically standard from a VC firm, just with this caveat of of obviously expectation of local development, but then things can change, right? What if in 5 years the business happened to be called in San Francisco? Just
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not standard, right? I don't think there are VCs that are typically issuing term sheets with saying, you have to have X number of people working here. The only times that those happen is they have to be U.S. based, for example. But for us and other entities like us, it is standard for us to put in the side agreement, for example, okay, you will have this Connecticut presence. This is what exists today. Best efforts to get to this point within a 12-month period. And then certainly, things happen. If people have to scale back, issues happen. For us, we're going to look at that and say, okay, did they make the best effort? Did they not? And then we'll look at the next round on, are they doing their best to expand here? Are they making the connections they need to here? And this makes sense for it to invest in again at a later date, with the first and foremost making sure that it's a good investment, because we ultimately want a return on our investments. Even if they have 100 employees, if it's not a good return, good opportunity for a return, it's not the right investment for us.
And as I understand it, those are evergreen funds, right? So they don't have a duration. So how do you put, the pressure, the typical pressure that VCs have on an exit, path, exit strategy? Do you have more flexibility for that in a time frame of the exit path?
We are patient capital, which is a significant benefit, especially on our bioscience side, where it can take 10, 15 years for a pharmaceutical to go through trials, for a med device to go through the proper procedures. So for us, that can be a huge benefit for a lot of our partners and portfolio companies. And they come to us with that understanding of, hey, we recognize that you're here in our best interests. We're here in Connecticut. We're going to do our best to do these things, but it's going to take time. And you're a perfect partner because you understand what we can build here and how long it'll take. But it can do a lot of positive good and positive benefit for the state and for the applications of those technologies. So it is something that is helpful. And you're right. We would certainly wish that these companies have an exit in 3 to 5 years or 7 years versus 15 to 20. But in some cases, it's a positive benefit and actually helps our deal flow.
And speaking of deal flow, what are your challenges also of finding the right deal flow for you? Do you do a lot of scouting, or you expect people just to know about you and your support?
I would say there's been a change, pre-COVID and post-COVID, as everybody likes to refer to. So because we are a small state, it's relatively easy of word of mouth to be able to talk about what we have, and we certainly rely on our large portfolio of companies to spread the word for us and our positive benefit and value add. Post-COVID, it's actually become a little bit harder because a lot of folks from other states that have moved into Connecticut, again, it might be a CEO of a startup who has no presence here, hasn't been here, so we have to work a little bit harder to get to those folks and help them understand what benefits we provide and that we exist, period, and that we can grow and they can grow here in the state. And there are ways for us to help them do that. But we get significant deal flow, even for the size of our state. And unfortunately, we can't make an investment in everybody. But we're so happy that the ecosystem continues to thrive and create new opportunities.
Maybe, Matthew, might be the right time to talk about a couple of success stories. I saw a few that were listed in your website, but maybe just one example of something that for you means success, right, in your internal KPIs for the macro objective that you guys have there.
So we talk about this. This is always an evolving kind of process for understanding what is success, right? Because we certainly want to create the ecosystem and a tech ecosystem here. So something we think about is, can we produce serial entrepreneurs here? That's a particular KPI that is hard to quantify, but is a great example of building the ecosystem and trying to enhance what we have here. So we have a ton of companies that have gone public, and then we actually have the opportunity to kind of maintain those companies and our ownership in those companies. We have companies that certainly continue to thrive. We just launched a climate tech fund, $100 million last year, as well as a $50 million underserved founder fund. And that, for us, being able to deploy those dollars into those types of communities is a significant win. It's a significant success, and we've deployed roughly $40 million across those two funds, and we're all evergreen, so we're all pursuing the same path to success. But we had several exits last year, distributions in the tens of millions for the last 3 years in a row. In fact, it was the best 3 years of the company of our firm's existence.
Well,
And we
can you give us
demonstrate.
a couple of names, right, of some of the companies that people
So
might...
there's a company, Butterfly, that's done significantly well, and they're doing, it's kind of a cross between the climate tech actually and our technology fund. So they actually go in and work with small businesses and help them take over their utilities, right? So they'll come in and say, you're spending so much on energy, we're going to help you evolve your small business, put in energy saving equipment, we're going to pay it up front, and we're going to take care of that for you, because it's so hard for small businesses, the lifeblood of our economy, to invest into those types of things. And afterwards, they're able to streamline utility use, to lower it, to maximize it for customer service for the hours used, and then be able to take that and continue to spread across franchises, across small businesses. That's one that's top of mind that happened fairly recently. We had another one with Populi, a healthcare company that exited last year, and I sit on the tech side, so I can't give you specific details on the healthcare stuff that's gone through. But we have companies that are doing great things in Connecticut and continue to see more and more things coming in from out of state and out of country.
Very good. Ram, let's switch to New Jersey, and you mentioned a number of programs. Let's stay in the activity of support of investment. So you mentioned a couple of programs that are in support of tax credit or angel match. So maybe let's spend a few words to describe those.
Certainly, thank you. I just wanted to kind of bring some focus on a couple of products in our portfolio. Quite frankly, it's just a lot. Our challenge is not that we don't do enough. Our challenge is that we have too much on our plates in terms of the diversity of products and programs, and we're continuously striving to tweak our marketing model to reach out to market and what have you. The two programs I wanted to touch upon are called the New Jersey Angel Tax Credit Program and the New Jersey Angel Match Program. The Angel is a misnomer in that it's a tax credit program to really support and drive investments into companies in the state. And much like how Matthew articulated, every program has different qualifying criteria, but there has to be a nexus within the state itself. And each program and product have different qualifying criteria. There is an application process for each of it. And clearly we do put a good effort. But specifically, the Angel Tax Credit Program is really geared toward inducing investors globally, irrespective of where they're based, and irrespective of they having any tax liabilities in the state. If you are an entity or an individual investing in a Jersey company and you qualify yourself for the Angel Tax Credit Program, there is a reimbursement of up to 25%, given certain criteria, but certainly 20% of your investment value back, either as a credit toward your future tax liabilities in the state, and if you do not have any, the Treasury Department literally writes you a check for that.
So just to understand how that works, because this is actually a very interesting scheme. So how different cities and sometimes regions, sometimes countries actually are now experimenting into different schemes of tax benefits. Do you get a check back if you declare a loss, or regardless?
It has nothing to do with loss.
Okay.
So let's assume for a moment the company does a $1 million round. Mm-hmm. And there's an investor that comes in for $1 million. They apply for the Angel Tax Credit Program. They are getting a check back for up to $250,000.
Wow, that's super generous.
Yeah,
it's just free money eventually.
Principle. And so it really serves to do two things. One, either reduces the cost basis for that investor, so the companies are able to sustain their valuation, or it induces the investor to invest in the company. Mm-hmm. Or alternatively, the investor could look at it saying, well, look, I'm going to get a $200,000 to $250,000 reimbursement. Why don't I increase my exposure by that value into that investment? So it really does work very well. And as I mentioned, angel is a misnomer, so you could be an individual or an institutional investor. That's
You,
Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. Have you been doing this for a number of years? So have
We
you
have
do,
been.
do you have a time enough to kind of measure what's been the success of this scheme?
I mean, at any given point of time, it's running between 40 and 60 million a year of credits, so which do a multiplier effect of 5x or 4x. It is attracting a significant amount of capital into companies in the state, right? Now, the Angel Match program we stood up last year, which is a venture debt program. We take pride at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, albeit a government entity. We move very quickly. Give you an example. When Silicon Valley Bank had gone under on a Friday, by Sunday evening, we stood up a program as a support function for technology companies in the state or life sciences, et cetera, that were banking with Silicon Valley Bank so that they wouldn't have pressures of liquidity. And Monday morning we announced it. So it was I think we were the first entity, and by Monday evening it was great. The nation woke up and did what they did. But we're proud of doing that. So
I still have nightmares of that weekend. It was actually a year ago. It feels like ages ago, but yeah.
It was painful. It was painful over the weekend to try and put that together. But, as a team, including the CEO, the Chief Economic Transformation Officer, who worked through the weekend, we stood up a program. But specifically, the Angel Match program is a venture debt. It is a program where we match an investment coming into the company for up to $500,000. It is very attractive, albeit it's venture debt, in that it's $500,000 or up to $500,000 on a one-to-one match or greater. It's a 10-year note with a 3% coupon. There's no current pay for 7 years, and there's some warrant coverage. So the risk we take on is significant because companies either are successful or are not in the first 7-year duration. But if they are successful and they're continuing to grow and their valuations increase, paying back the $500,000 is of no substance, and the warrant coverage that we are offered is insignificant in terms of dilution because the valuation growth over that 10-year duration. And these programs are all stackable, right? And so you could come in and say, I'm doing a fundraising. I would like to tap into the Angel Tax Credit Program. And by the way, I would like to tap into the Angel Match Program. And it's a very effective tool. And a lot of companies have been coming to it. We launched Angel Tax Credit Program April of last year, and we closed our first transaction in June, pardon me. So there's quite a bit of traction. And that's how we have kind of curated our portfolio, which is not every program helps every companies. But each program is intended on helping companies at a different stage, and they're all stackable, provided you find the highest common denominator in terms of qualifying. There's another sort of very unique way of we're using. We're supporting technology and life science companies in the state, as you're all aware. Life science is a big sector in the state, along with other technology-oriented. Is our net operating loss program, or NOL. NOL is really meant as a non-dilutive liquidity opportunity for companies. As Matthew highlighted, life science companies and tech companies, they have long sort of gestation period of research and development, and they incur significant losses. See, our NOL program is an opportunity for you to monetize your losses into tax credits that are actively saleable to third parties. And on average, the sale value is about 92% of par. So assume for a moment you have a $10 million tax liability, just making up a number, and you monetize it, you are ending up with $9 million of working capital into the company, which is not dilutive. And it works really well for certain sectors because profitability is a long way down the pike. But in the meantime, they do need the liquidity and the capital to continue growing or developing their product. and it alleviates the need for continuously tapping into the capital markets for equity or debt. And some companies have a challenge, but this is a great way to find non-dilutive liquidity.
And how difficult is the process for a company that is a good fit for this program to apply?
I mean, the process is pretty straightforward. I mean, I won't tell you that it's not these applications are not long. We are government agencies, so we have belts and suspenders. And one thing we do take a pride at the EDA is we are very diligent on compliance and policy, where we audit ourselves internally and external audit every program every year, and we have come out with stellar results. And there's something to speak to that. But what's great, despite all that sort of checks and balances within, our process is pretty darn efficient in terms of moving quickly.
Good. And Sophia, let's move to New York. You talk about the vast amount of real estate that you guys run. So maybe a couple of examples are, in fact, a couple of projects that you are now in the middle of promoting and the RFPing process of them. So maybe you should mention a couple. The Climate Innovation Hub in particular, that is a project that everybody's talking about, and a few more.
Sounds great. I thought maybe it makes sense to take a step back a little bit and explain how it works when companies approach us. So first of all, New York is the second largest tech ecosystem worldwide after San Francisco. So we get a lot of companies here. There's over 800 incubators. Half of them are international, that are located in New York City across all 5 boroughs. And there have been 112 unicorns in New York City. So there's a lot happening here. EDC is also itself a really large organization, right? We're a nonprofit. So we're around 500 people, and we're also calling ourselves a little bit like the Swiss Army knife of a city agency. So we do a lot, and we can support companies in all different kinds of ways. So normally when a company approaches us, it's very similar to what everyone else has shared so far. It's very important that the company demonstrates some kind of commitment to being in New York City. And I think that's normal, for any kind of company that wants to be successful in the market, abroad or anywhere, that some kind of physical presence, should it be for a few months or longer than that, ideally, is required to meet all that diverse network and all those different VC funding opportunities that are existing here. We have normally when we talk to a company, they approach me or anyone else that they have been in contact with at EDC, and we talk to them about what their plans are for opening up an office in the city. So normally when the office will have 50 people or more, when that is what the plan is, then our business development team supports them with finding appropriate sites across New York City, and getting access to the different tax credits.
So the limit though is 50 people, right? So that's what are granted an account manager.
Yes, but it's not that strict, and I'll come back to that in a second. But anyways, that's one way in which we look at companies looking to come to New York, right? We also work super close with the business improvement districts, or the BIDs, that exist here in New York City. And they also have, if some tax credits are not available to companies, then those BIDs also offer their own tax credits, right? For example, they get employee funding, or they get a specific amount that is being, that a company, a specific amount of funding that each company can access over a specific amount of time. And some of those tax credits are also matched by funding on the New York State level. So we really work close with our partners on the state level as well when it comes to tax credits and supporting international companies. That being said, for companies smaller than them, and especially me working in international partnerships, I know that a lot of the international companies, startups, scale-ups, have opened up, start operating here with a smaller capacity. And that is where our industry initiatives team come in, and that's also how we can get to the Climate Innovation Hub. So long way back. It's a long story. I'm taking a big circle here. But our industry initiatives team teams really try to build ecosystems around those innovation sectors, right? So for example, for the Climate Innovation Hub, it's a $100 million investment that was announced at the beginning of the year that tries to build a climate research and innovation ecosystem physical facility in the southern part of Brooklyn. So that's again where our real estate comes in. So one program we can highlight here is Pilots at BAT, which allows international companies with climate tech solutions to pilot and commercialize their solutions. The advantage of the BAT, stands for the Brooklyn Army Terminal, which is again in the southern part of Brooklyn. That really gives companies in the climate tech space a lot of opportunities to, take advantage of access to water, air, and also, access to urban tech solutions, because it's, still part of New York City.
Let's talk a little bit about this, because when I
Sure.
was there a week ago or something, 10 days ago, everybody was talking about this. I guess that there is a big RFP going on there. Just give us some idea of the time frame of also development, because I've seen rendition of what that is going to look like. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to change a good chunk
Yes.
of that area there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate it, because it's really a lot of space, and which is interesting, because if you think of New York City, you wouldn't really think that we would have all of that space. It is all linked to a plan that we released at the end of February. It's called the Green Economy Action Plan. And this plan codifies for the first time what the green economy means for New York, and signals 63 commitments to grow the green economy in New York City. And the Climate Innovation Hub that's this RFP that has been out now. All the information is available on the website. It's a $100 million investment to again grow the green economy here. It's a physical entity. And Pilots at BAT is a program that's already running. So there's already 4 startups that are scaling their solutions there, and the Climate Innovation Hub will break ground in the next 2 years. There's a whole ecosystem that's being constructed in Brooklyn around the green economy. New Lab is a really interesting entity that I can also highlight, that's connected to the green economy. So that's something where a lot of large corporates are running challenges that startups can be a part of, and us at EDC, we really try to connect the companies with those different operators, entities in New York City. Similar ecosystems exist also around life sciences and around tech. I'm not sure how much time we have to go into those.
I mean, if you want to talk about the Spark Kips Bay.
Sure. So Spark Kips Bay is an example of another way in which we try to incubate the life sciences ecosystem in New York. This is part of a broader LifeSci NYC initiative, which is a $1 billion investment to grow New York City, turn it into a leading hub for life sciences. So there's over 100 institutions of higher education in New York City. And our goal is, so there's a lot of R&D happening here, and our goal is to really leverage some of that R&D that's happening, and to provide that and to support companies, startups that are coming out of those universities and out of those incubators in New York City with the right wet lab space to commercialize their solutions. So Spark Kips Bay is located on the eastern side of Manhattan. This is an old college campus that will be repurposed to a leading hub and for education, research, and a commercial office space for life sciences companies. So similar to the Climate Innovation Hub, that RFP or RFEI actually is out now. So we really encourage companies, private entities from anywhere to look into that, and to think about, how you can really transform and turn New York into, turn that space into, to help turn New York into a leading, space for life sciences. And it's really unique because it's so central in Manhattan, and that gives you access to a lot of the, larger life sciences companies that are already here in New York. There's, life sciences is something that's, I think, strong in the entire tri-state area. And we are also, for example, we have a life science expansion fund with which we can support life sciences startups and companies to scale their solutions in New York.
So I have to say, as somebody been living in Silicon Valley for 22 years, that sometimes, more than sometimes, we live in a bubble to some extent here. There is so much going on that the whole economy is fully concentrated in innovation. But once you start putting your head out, it's fascinating the amount of activities that are happening, particularly on the East Coast. And it's we as an institution would like to track and see also to share opportunities for for the rest of entities, in particular, a lot of international entities, right? They're looking at solutions in the market and see what is the best value proposition. So we'll dig a little closer to the single value proposition. But let me switch to Jetro here, an international component. Like Jetro decided to be, I mean, among different places, including Silicon Valley, but also New York is probably the major office. 10 days ago, Jetro, together with us, we put together a large event specifically to support the vast number of Japanese corporates that decided to have an office of innovation, whether that's through corporate venture capital or just looking for startups locally, but decided really to structure their local presence on the East Coast. And part of the data that we share together, the reports that we just published together, also with an open directory, is showing that this is a trend that is accelerating. And in particular for Japanese corporates, Japan is probably the most represented economy, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, as it comes to physical presence of that. So maybe give us a little bit of a sense of why do you think there is so much of attraction among Japanese corporates, and then some of the programs that you guys support in that flow.
Certainly. So I think it's exciting times really for anything that's happening between Japan and the U.S. And it's sort of Prime Minister Kishida and President Biden's meeting last week certainly put a staple in that relationship. But at the same time, post-COVID, really, I think the corporates realized, look, we need to figure out our transformation, digital transformation, our open innovation. Obviously, Japan, it's very difficult. There's corporate hierarchies, there's big companies, but Jetro was able to sort of be in that mix and represent large corporates, focusing on collaborative efforts with companies with technology, startups, advanced startups, and those skills and talents that you can't find perhaps in Japan. So we called it JBridge, but it's essentially a platform for anything that can be collaborative between Japanese corporates and U.S. startups. It's a member-based platform. So I think we have about close to more than 2,000 members now, about 2,200 members from about 1,500 companies, and 40 to about 50% of that probably are large corporates. 20-30% of that probably small medium companies, and then 20% of that is the foreign. The members overseas branches. So like the big corporates, like the Mitsubishis, the Toyotas, as you can imagine, with their innovation offices in the U.S. So we have that connective sort of engagement with through our Invest Japan department, which is the division that helps U.S. companies go to Japan, and we have a massive database of companies that we've assisted throughout the years. So it was too easy to put those two together and realize, look, if you're a Japanese corporate, if you're looking to bring innovation, if you're looking to create digital transformation in-house, we can source companies because we assist many U.S.-based companies that are trying to get to Japan. And so that matching works, and it certainly is working. And again, it's not just the U.S. We do this on a global scale, but for this particular purpose, we are looking to create a bigger environment in the U.S. And through that, we do host events, and with Mind the Bridge, we have other events that we've done. And the greatest thing about this is the reverse pitch from the corporates. So, rarely you hear, a corporate go up on stage and say, hey, look, we need to find this, we need to partner, and then we would do these on a probably, bi-monthly to about 3 months, 2 or 3, 4 times a year to host these sort of events all over the US. So that's, the importance of this sort of collaborative effort.
And I assume, Daiki, that you work as a bridge also for all the entities similar to the ones that are represented here with different states, right? So you're the one that can interpret the opportunity and then being the bridge with in this case with Japanese corporates that might want to tap into potential co-investments or specific opportunity that each state is representing. Correct?
Yes. So the unique position that I sit allows me to be very creative with how I use my network. So the other factor of what I do is I essentially work with and Ram and the state of Connecticut, and assist on any type of Japanese companies or startups that want to be into those states. And I do that obviously with all the other states in my jurisdiction. But Japan is, as you can imagine, the largest investor in the U.S. Japanese companies are everywhere in probably all 50 states. So we have our team is focused on connecting that, putting them together, and then it's great to hear all these new initiatives from the states. And I at Jetro, we are the ones that can sort of spread that information out more than ever today. And it's not just to the Japanese corporates that long back in the days where we would assist a lot of just the large corporations, but more now it's these young companies that are, just like 40, 50 years ago when the Sonys and the Toyotas and all that came into the US and really wanted to create something. We now have these young entrepreneurs and young companies that are also ambitious to enter the US market. And we have that sort of platform for them. And through, this, and then now with the efforts from the states and the collaborative efforts we do with them, I think it's just more exciting overall from an ecosystem standpoint.
And considering we're talking about support of investment, maybe you want to share some of the programs also that JETRO has in place to support VCs or other investors that are interested in Japanese startups?
Yes. So, in Japan, the startup world is still very, very young. It's up and coming, but it's also very exciting times. But we were able to create these, work with these startups in Japan and identify, some of the best. So we do have through our link, we do have this, startup portfolio where, for any investors in the US that's, seriously interested, or not just investors, but any companies, for instance, that want to work with these startups. We created a database of companies. Now, that's still very small because, the startup world is small, but we know the best of the best of Japan, and we help source that. And this is just a small piece to essentially what we do with these startups. But we obviously work with and partner with Mind the Bridge. We work with EDC. We work with EDA or Choose New Jersey, for instance, to identify universities that are creating accelerator programs, or investors that run their own incubation centers or offices, or accelerators, and create sort of new ways to engage. And I think the newest of all is essentially our Techstar equity program that we started, and which will probably go live in July. But it's an equity-based program. We don't invest, we don't have equity stakes, but we certainly create the operating factor for Techstar Japan to identify Japanese companies to invest in. And I think this sort of gives you that the next step into more foreign investors that want to invest into Japanese startups.
So just to understand, because I heard about that program of the Techstars, is JETRO a financial supporter of that project? Is an LP? What's the role of JETRO in or Japanese government overall in attracting international players to play actually in Japan?
So we were able to find the financial partner for Techstars. In this case, it's Mitsui Fudosan, which is a real estate company in Japan. And it's essentially a program built for Mitsui Fudosan. However, it's sort of powered by JETRO, meaning, we do provide assistance through our programs, operating fees and such, as well, to run these programs. in Japan. So that's where we don't have a stake, financially. We don't have equity. We don't do any, as a government, we can't, but we can certainly create the backbone of that program, helping in this case, Mitsui Fudosan to make those investments. But that's just one way. And then we're going to be looking at other things, just from a VC fund standpoint. How can we be part of that fund from not an LP standpoint, but through sharing, some of the knowledges that we have as a government entity in Japan.
Yeah, and some of these programs, as you mentioned, I think are pretty new. So they still kind of the long term effect, in particular if you're starting early stages, is yet to come, right? But
yes.
I wonder if there's any measurement today of success. If there's anything specific that you're using in your internal KPIs for some of these projects, anything that you can share?
So I think we have companies, a startup that we helped in the biotech side and that we supported, and we certainly helped them get investments from U.S. as well as POCs from with a U.S. based company. That's from the Japanese startup standpoint. Through JBridge, for instance, this is more of our KPI objective for JBridge is essentially cooperation between a Japanese company and overseas startup for business. So this is also like business alliance, capital alliance, and I guess although it wasn't part of this program itself, but the best case example I have in the East Coast is a New York based company called Great Market, for instance. That was looking. Oh, I'm sorry. Marubeni was looking for a specific technology that they couldn't find, and we sort of made that introduction. And then they worked on a POC, and eventually what happened was Marubeni made a strategic investment into that company, and as of today they're operating and overseeing all of Marubeni's factories. But that's like the best case example I have on an East Coast standpoint. But again, we do this globally, so we have other great cases in Malaysia or in Vietnam or in South Africa with similar sort of cooperative agreements.
Gotcha. Very good. I think Daiki already mentioned the idea of doing some reverse pitching for corporates. That's what I would like to do with you guys in particular, because it's pretty clear that in the world is more and more connected. The options of global startups are almost unlimited. And so there's really a pretty clear race between local entities and regional entities that still want to attract specific development of startups. So we'd like to do this quick tour of pitching of value proposition. What is the unique value proposition? Why a company, a startup should be considering looking for Connecticut investment versus moving headquarters to New Jersey or New York. So why don't we go real quick and do really as we would do with startups, right? A round of quick pitching. What is your unique value proposition that you think that your agency or your region can offer to your potential audience? So it must be for the most part startups.
Sure.
Metsu, you're first.
Yes. So, I think the natural tendency is for folks from Manhattan to mature and then want some more land and space and then move out to Connecticut. So I think that's kind of the right approach for these companies to mature and grow and then move out to Connecticut. No, but seriously. So, being the size of state that we are, we have an incredibly educated workforce and talent pool with great universities here in the state. That is a great source of energy and education. We have some defense and aerospace primes, which means that there's a ton of talented workforce here as well. And it's really what we call it a one-call state. The state is of the right size that any meetings necessary we can facilitate with the large corporations, government entities, and we also have something called the Innovation Lab here at Connecticut Innovations, where we are able to take one of our portfolio companies, and if there's something in the state entity, state agency that has a problem and needs a solution, and one of our portfolio companies can do that, we will actually pilot that company to the state agency, bypassing the procurement process for a few months. And then after that, they're able to, decide on their own whether or not they want that entity. And that is a huge plus for helping the state agencies solve a problem. That's a huge plus for our portfolio companies if they can solve that problem for them. And we have a great location here in Connecticut with a great coastline.
There we go. And I think also the first sentence that you mentioned, although it was half of a joke, but I think it's pretty real. Ram, your turn. Pitch us New Jersey.
Well, clearly New Jersey is a thriving state. It is. People forget that the innovation hubs and innovation has been the epicenter of New Jersey for decades and decades with Bell Labs and so forth. I mean, it's astounding. I actually was at the Bell Labs facility last week. I forgot how many things were invested or invented at Bell Labs. New Jersey happens to have its own unique position in the world, in the sectors of life sciences and financial services, other areas of technology, etc. It is a hub for lots of corporates, but equally important, as a state government, we have coordinated across sister agencies, and in particular the Economic Development Authority, to support companies at various levels. And we make it a point to bring in sister agencies as need be. In just the EDA alone, we have a $14 billion tax credit shelf. We have a $1.6 billion balance sheet, $1 billion in cash, and no debt. But more importantly, we are all about growing the ecosystem, particularly under Governor Murphy over the last 5+ years. We've focused very heavily on what is the ecosystem, what is the engagement within the ecosystem, and how do you engage the stakeholders. So it's a great area or a great state to come in and tap into our resources to not only establish yourself or expand in the state, but also to tap into all the resources that we spend a lot of time creating a web around. And as I mentioned earlier, our programs and products range from supporting ideation all the way to past growth. So you could be already in Jersey, but we have other sort of programs to help you grow further, particularly at the EDA, as we're very much a jobs-based authority. But as I mentioned, unlike the other EDAs, we do tend to have a lot of programs to support business growth in the state. And we're very much about innovation. And we've committed now about $150 million to stand up, make equity investments in various strategic innovation centers. We just announced an AI hub with Princeton University. We're in the process of we also are putting together it's under construction, the Helix, which is nearly $1 billion venture in New Brunswick, bringing life sciences from clinical to bed stage. That is partnered with Merck, Johnson & Johnson, Robert Wood Johnson, Rutgers University, etc. We just announced an investment in a digital health platform in Jersey City called the EdgeWorks, Sci-City EdgeWorks, which again has Bristol Myers, EY, Nokia Bell Labs, and other entities embedded in it. So we're doing more and more of this, and that only speaks to how focused we are on weaving an emerging growth market beyond supporting just as well-established global entities as well.
Got it. And Sophie, it's the time to pitch New York.
Great. I'll try to be brief. So I think what makes New York attractive to companies is its density, right? So it's the density of its different networks. As mentioned, there's 47 Fortune 500 companies that all have their own individual networks. There's over 800 incubators, and the sheer proximity of everything in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and also, Queens, the Bronx, and of course we also have Staten Island, that all can be reached very quickly. Those companies can be reached quickly, the VCs can be reached quickly, and all the different other companies and their networks, right? So, and there's many events happening all the time. So if a company wants to scale here, especially in tech, we say that this is the place to be present at, to be, participate in those informal networks and also the formal ones, of course. And EDC would be happy to connect any company and in tech and also our focus sectors with those networks. Our workforce is also highly qualified. So there's a lot of people here that, have come from those universities, over 100 universities here. It's the largest workforce in the US with 8 million people. 3.2 million people here have a bachelor's degree or higher. So it's not just many people, it's also highly qualified people. And the networks that those people create really help companies scale and be successful here in the US. New York can also be a gateway to the US, especially from companies, including from companies from Japan, also from Europe. New York is just close. We have 3 airports. 2 of them are one of them is in New Jersey, which is an easy trip from Manhattan, from New York. But the proximity makes it very convenient for companies to, scale here and be successful here. The last point I want to stress, because it's often overlooked, it's so obvious, is that people that want to be successful in the US like to come to New York because of its quality of life. It's a great place to live at. We also have space, in Brooklyn or also in some of the outer boroughs, and where it is possible to have a house. But there's so many different things happening. The quality of life for people from anywhere is really high. There's over 200 languages spoken here, so there's really room for everyone here there's a lot of people for companies to connect with. And at EDC, again, we'd be happy to plug companies into those formal and informal networks here to help them be successful here in New York City.
There you go. And the passion that comes out, right? What makes us different and unique. Daiko, why doing business with Japan? What's the opportunity?
Well, I think it's very obvious, Japan being, the third or the fourth largest, country. And also the ability to say that, Japan has been a strong investor in the US for many, many, many years. And there's already a great community throughout the US. I think that's important. At the same time, JETRO itself, we are a global organization. And we've been a global organization for many years as well. So we have that as a government organization, we have that sort of advantage to identify and see how a global or how you can go global to that aspect. In Japan, it's still very young, but we have all these companies now that are looking to enter these new markets, and JETRO can be that contact point for those companies. So we usually like to say, talk to JETRO first when it comes to, Japan. If Japan ever does come up, it's JETRO should be your first contact point. And then at the same time, for myself, and I myself as a New Jersey resident and New Jersey native, I couldn't help but promote these 3 states itself, the greatness of it as well. And, certainly as somebody who knows all 3 states well, and also Japan, I think it fits perfectly well that I definitely am on this panel today.
Yeah, it's great to have a bunch of friends now here. All right, I can see here a few questions coming in. So also, for the audience, feel free to post your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Let me read the first one. As a state, how do you benchmark your activities versus others so that you stay competitive to others' offerings? So basically, this is for obviously the US states. How much time do you spend benchmarking what your competitors are doing?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll go for it. I mean, we certainly do benchmark to see what is being done to kind of get some ideas, but ultimately it really comes down to looking inward within the state and looking at what maybe the stimulus needed or the products and the program structures needed to stimulate further growth. And thereafter, once established, we're constantly evaluating. We have KPIs against which we evaluate the programs, and periodically we would amend them or tweak them, and over a period of time, even determine if they should be just sunset. But clearly, competitive benchmarking across others, sister states, and across the country is important only from a standpoint of understanding what is being done different or what are the levers to be even more successful.
Yeah, I wonder, considering before, and Sophia knows she was about to intervene, but I mean, most of people are more familiar with the structure of a private entities, right? Where there's the marketing, right? There's somebody doing strategy. I wonder, do you guys have people within your infrastructure dedicated to strategy and, like looking around and see what has worked for other states or other regions and try to, to suggest it as a potential tweak of a current programs? Do you have such, dedicated professionals?
So I can jump in. So we have two teams that can be relevant for that. And when it comes to benchmarking, as Ram said, we look inwards, of course, as well, what's happening in New York in terms of, how we can include all 5 boroughs, how can we be more inclusive, but we also look globally, right? So how does New York compare on a global scale? Because we want to turn New York into a global leader in a lot of different industry sectors. So, for example, we're looking at a lot of European cities. We're looking at Tokyo, what Tokyo is doing around tech, and there's close partnerships between New York City and Tokyo and other cities worldwide, where we see, where does New York need to catch up, and how are they building ecosystems around the different innovation sectors. We have one team that's focused on strategic investments, that's mostly focused on leveraging our real estate assets to grow and develop those public-private partnerships. And then we also have an economic research and policy team that provides us with research on the different factors that are coming up in the different regions or cities worldwide. And I also encourage you to take a look at the EDC website. We publish a monthly snapshot and economic data, which really shows how New York is catching up also on a global scale, and how New York is recovering from after the pandemic.
Matthew, do you guys benchmark your activities versus others?
So speaking from the VC perspective, we want to be collaborative, right? We want to co-invest with other firms, and so one thing we're doing is investing in fund of funds into the state. So we have 14 fund of funds in our portfolio. So trying to enhance that collaboration, because ultimately we want our portfolio companies to raise money and find co-investors. But we work alongside, for example, the Ben Franklin Technology Partners. The Ben Franklin Fund is similar to us, working out of Philadelphia. We just made an investment in a company that they're invested in. Probably 3 weeks ago, we made that investment. So it's not something that we, feel like we have to compete with necessarily. We can collaborate. But when it comes to, a company maybe moving to the state, we do have an organization called Advanced CT that works alongside us. That's a concierge service. I think Anne Sophie had mentioned kind of something similar. And so their job as a state organization is to kind of work with that company that's talking about expanding, and kind of do everything for them as far as, hey, you're looking for a facility, you need a workspace, you need to talk to this, you want to partner with this company, and they'll facilitate all of that for them and try to make it as an easy lift as possible to make that expansion. But really, post COVID, with the opportunity for folks to work remote, we I think find a lot of opportunities in foundational ways to get people to move here and stay here, and that's through education systems for degree programs, or for young kids, or even just things like hiking trails, and bringing people and wanting them to live in the state, even if it's not necessarily their headquarters.
Excellent. So, gonna read the last two questions here before we wrap up. Let me see. What advice would you give to government agency that is just starting to develop its innovation ecosystem? So obviously, all of you here have been invited, and you're speakers because you've been into this for decades, if not more. I will start with Jetro, maybe with the more of a country specific policy. What advice would you give to other government agencies that are starting looking at similar activities that Jetro has been doing?
Well, I think in creating an innovation ecosystem it takes a while, but I think to give yourself a head start, these public-private partnerships at the same time working with universities, working with your local agencies, and any partners, realizing that it doesn't happen overnight, but at the same time, you can't do it by yourself, and everybody needs to sort of be on board and help create that ecosystem. Japan has decades and centuries of history, creating their own technology, and it has proven to work over the years. But you know what? In this day and age, it's sort of, you can't get behind anymore. And to create that, you have to be open to working with others, to be more to build that ideation. So I think as a start really is to have that communication platform amongst all your other peers, and be able to create that together.
Well said. Well said. I think it's a good time probably to wrap up here. So again, in interest of time, thanks to all our speakers here. Congratulations in your activities, each of you in your local region. Again, as a reminder, this is the first event of a series that we'll be hosting in the next few weeks. Startup Ecosystem Stars is the website where all the informations are recorded. Also, to do an application as a government agencies and to be awarded potentially. And the award ceremony is the first week in December back in Paris at the International Chamber of Commerce offices. Again, first week of December. Thanks again, everybody, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.